Cool. Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 5 of Beyond the Court. I'm Khalil Kwate, aka GT. You can find me on the handles at Galileo86 on Instagram and Twitter. Facebook doesn't matter. So I've got my boy Suku with me as always. Yo, what's going on, Suks?
What up, guys? How you doing? I'm coming to you live from the bubble. As you can see, there's no combs or brushes available.
Oh snap! Oh snap! And then basically what we're doing is usually we have a guest on the show, right, Suks? But now we decided to switch things up a little bit. So now it's going to be the three of us. It's going to be me, you, and the new member of the show, Tula. Tula, what's going on? Introduce yourself to the people, man.
Hey, what's up, guys? What's up? Yo, my name is Tula, lover of basketball. Huge fan of the Celtics. So GT and I will clash a lot. And yeah, man, just coming to you live from my crib, not in the bubble. I'm just just huge admirer of the game. Love it to bits. Been playing since high school. Coached my high school team. So yeah, here
Nice.
I am. Here to talk.
Did you play ball and when you were in high school, Tula, or did you just coach afterwards?
I played ball in high school. I started playing ball, yeah, like grade 8. I started playing basketball, but I was playing soccer. When you're like a kid and you're just like an athlete, you pretty much play every sport. I played soccer, basketball, tennis, cricket, and I tried out rugby, but I kept getting hurt, so I was like, no, I'm not gonna do this. So I did those sports, and then carried on with basketball second year, grade 9, and then carried on playing basketball till I finished high school. Played point guard most of the time. I didn't really want to play point guard starting off, but because I was literally the shortest guy in my team, they were like, you either play point guard or you don't make the team. So I had to get good at my handles, get good at my shooting, like outside perimeter shooting. And once I started getting like really better, I started starting in the high school team, and then played frequently actually. Because in my final year of high school, I was like captain of the team and everything. So it was really dope. Yeah.
Oh shit! Shout out, man.
Yeah, that's So I think as you guys have both know, like we've been without the NBA for like a good couple of months. I mean, I think the season shut down in March and just opened again in July. So it's like a good 5-6 months of no basketball. It's so good to have the game back. I think the thing that I love the most right now is somehow they've managed to, because of the frequency of the games as well, is they've also adjusted the times of the games. I mean, you've got games playing at 8:30 in South Africa or in African time, at 10, like a decent time where we can still get up and watch. Well, not even get up. We can just watch the game without having to wait until the early hours. Fair enough, they have games in the early hours of the morning, but at least now it's a lot easier to watch all the games that we want to watch and to be able to watch the game. What's your favorite part of the NBA restart?
For me, it's probably been, I guess like the timing of everything, and I think it's been cool, sort of seeing how the guys react to the whole no fan thing. Like I thought we'd hear more banter like on the court, but they managed it quite well. So I think like it basically feels like it's NBA basketball, and I think because there was like a play in for the lower seeded teams, that made it quite exciting. So I think it'd be interesting to see how they can bring some of the stuff that they've been doing now, like into the normal season once we're back there.
That's true. And then on your side, Tula, what's been your favorite part about the NBA restart? What's been your favorite thing?
So for me, my favorite thing, a lot of what Suku mentioned, I actually agree with. But one thing that really stood out for me about the NBA restart, which is something I actually expected, was like the amount of players that were surprisingly good after, during the actual regular season when the fans were around, were kind of just average, rotation bench players who kind of stood out and actually did really well after during the while they're playing in the bubble. So like it's amazing for me that like the whole no fans thing is actually like affected certain players in such a way that now they're even more confident. They go out there and they play better. And and for me personally, it's like I didn't really pay attention to like some of the rotation players in teams, and now I actually pay attention to them. Like when you watch the game, and you're like, oh, why are all the starters in the bench right now? And then you really like now you actually paying attention, like especially during the scrimmages, like seeing players like Bobo actually start to play with the starters. That was quite interesting. Like was really cool. So yeah, I think that's the one thing I liked, just seeing all the standouts.
So I think what's nice is that you've both mentioned some really cool things. So I think the one thing that's kind of been nice is those virtual screens that they've had around the stadiums as well. I saw Paul Pierce pull up to one of the games on the virtual screens, and Lil Wayne has been like quite a frequent visitor of games on the screen. And I think what's nice about what you just mentioned, some of the players have come back from taking the time off to coming into the bubble and actually lifting their games. So I'm gonna ask you guys two questions, right? So like you can go first. Who is the player that surprised you the most? Because there's a couple of guys who stepped up their games, and then who would you say is your bubble MVP?
What's up, gents?
Yo, can you hear us?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No,
So basically, for me, the player that stood out the most was TJ Warren. Like I was surprised, bro. I didn't even know the guy during the regular season. Like I'm gonna admit and say I did not know him. I didn't pay attention to him, and he put it on for the Pacers. He actually helped Oladipo a lot. Because obviously Oladipo wasn't. Yes, he was back in shape, but I kind of expected him to not like come back fully himself. And I think a lot of people also expected the same thing. But TJ Warren came in, had multiple 30-point games. It was amazing. Like I think even like his shots, like watching him play, you can tell that like this is something he worked on. Like it's similar. It's a very Kawhi-like type of shot. So it's like it's you can tell it's meant for the mid-range. It's really dope. It's amazing. TJ Warren has been, I think for me, like one of the most surprising players of the bubble so far.
And then your MVP?
MVP.
Your bubble MVP, the guy who's been like.
Bubble MVP, of course. I mean, there's literally nobody. I think for me it was stuck between two players, and I had to really think about it. It was Dev Book and Dame Lillard. I think in terms of how the team itself in Phoenix performed, Dev Book actually has to take credit for how well he's performed for Phoenix. But man, like Dame is just Dame's been carrying this team, and like I mean he's been doing that for quite a while, but like it's amazing what he's doing during like in the bubble right now. Like it is amazing stuff, and he's just playing smart, man. He's just so calm, he's so relaxed. I think he's literally like bubble MVP for me. I don't know how it's gonna look like in the playoffs, but yeah, like so far, man, he's killing. He's really
I feel you, bro. I absolutely feel you. So you're wearing a Damian Lillard jersey, so I'm guessing you're sitting in the house. So I mean, same question goes for you. Although we kind of already know who your MVP is. Who's your most surprising? Who's the player that surprised you the most in the bubble? And then who is your bubble MVP?
Yeah, I think Tula covered it, man. Like, I think TJ Warren was crazy. Like, he had a good stretch. Like, I think he had a good sort of run of games. Other players that I kind of enjoyed were Devin Booker. Like, I mean, the Suns went 8-0 in the bubble. and like they were a team that basically had no chance of getting into the playoffs, but they kind of like fought their way in there, which was pretty dope on their behalf. So I think yeah, for them it's almost like a credit to the team as a whole with Book kind of leading the way. And then I would also say Kyle Kuzma put in some work for the Lakers as well. Like he hit that game winner shot, which was quite good. I thought he carried them a bit while AD wasn't around. So I thought, yeah, he was a key player. And then obviously Lillard's my MVP. I mean, he like as soon as the Clippers talked that smack, he was like, all right, I see you. Keep that same energy. Like I sent you both home, and watch your mouth. But yeah, like I think he brought a good sort of like I think that moment was like a great turning point for him in the bubble because he just took it to like a whole another place, which was dope.
Yeah. All right. I think the nice thing about the bubble is, and I think also to be fair to other players, like other players probably don't have as much to play for as, for instance, the Suns or the Spurs or Phoenix, or the Blazers had. For instance, I mean the Lakers secured the 1 seed early. The Bucks secured the best, the number 1 seed or the best record in the league early. And I mean, some of the depth spots really kind of sorted. So I think for the other teams, it was just more like getting into rhythm, getting to shape. Whereas teams like the Blazers and the Suns, for instance, had to be like on it from go. But I think, and with respect to players of kind of like, I kind of knew he had it all along. But Michael Porter Jr. for me was like, okay, kid, like get into that bag, like show everyone what you can do, because he was kind of nice with it as well, when the league restarted. I think everyone knew he had the skill set and the talent. It was just a matter of Mike Malone giving him game time, and I think now that Gary Harris and Jamal Murray were on the bench, kind of gave him like the opportunity to get into the court and show everyone what he's capable of. And I think he was surprising, but it was also like, kind of cool to see him ball out. And I'm going to give Dev Book the MVP because even though they failed to make it into the playoffs, even though they didn't make it into the playing game, like the Suns went 6-7-0. Like they didn't lose a game in the bubble. You know what I mean? And I mean, the thing is, I love what Dame has done in terms of like carrying the Blazers. Like he's hit some crazy shots. Like I remember there was one last night or the night before where he hit the shot from the logo. Like that was insane. That was insane. But then on the other side, Dev Book has also been putting up crazy numbers. And for me, the one thing that sticks out is just that shot that he took against the Clippers, where we had first Paul George in his face, and then kind of veered away from Paul George, turned around to hit the jumper, and then Kawhi all over him, and he still made that shot. And I was like, damn, this kid is something else. That was very, very dope to see. That was very, very dope to see. So one thing I just mentioned now, right, is that, some of the games were kind of like, it was more about the teams getting back into rhythm and getting back into shape, kind of like feeling themselves the way back into form. Do you guys think we need to make a lot of some of the victories? So, for instance, the Lakers and the Clippers were one of the first games that we saw when the NBA restarted. Do you guys think we need to make a big deal out of the Lakers within the Clippers, or was it just one of those games where the teams were getting back into the swing of things? Soups, what do you think?
I think for them, as you said earlier, like the Lakers had already qualified. Like obviously, there's a sense of pride that kind of goes with it because it's a big LA rivalry. But I think it was still like, because it was the first game post the reintroduction of the NBA, I think it was probably like a bit of a feeler. I mean, even them getting like beaten by the Raptors, which was quite a big one. Like there's still one or two issues that might like that might carry through if they don't start to hit their shots and things like that. But I think it's even if it wasn't for the break, this probably would have happened anyway, because you start to load manage once you've got the top seed. So teams naturally kind of take their foot off the gas at that point. So I don't think it's like too worrying, but I think for the Lakers more than the other teams, there's a bit of momentum that's been lost that they have to pick up, because like if they face the Blazers first round, they're coming in hot. So I think for them, that's probably something that they have to look out for.
Okay. Good points. Tula, I want to ask you pretty much the same thing. I mean, I think Sulu raised something that's quite interesting, and that's the fact that, fair enough, the Lakers have secured the 1 seed, but also momentum is a huge thing going into the playoffs. You know, like you need to have players in shape, in form, ready to go. And I think what we've also seen recently is some teams, although they've been kind of resting their starters, they kind of have a set starting five. Whereas teams like the Lakers, for instance, are still trying to figure things out. What are your thoughts on some of that?
I think he's right, because when you look at how the Lakers have played in the bubble, right? You can tell that from game one, it was the main thing was, let's try and figure this thing out so that when we get to the playoffs, we have a working system. Because also remember that with them losing Avery Bradley and Rondo was a knock to them, because now they're bringing in new personnel that has to play with the team, but also try and figure out how they actually gel against different teams. And I think that them playing in the bubble was very, like, I'm not going to count the losses that they've had and stuff, because what was more important to me seeing them play was how they were trying to figure it out, like how they're like, okay, so if AD is sitting out, who do we play in his position? Who do we play? What's the approach that we have coming in?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even when LeBron was sitting out like a few minutes, you would see, obviously, I mean, you would see a lot of things like, for example, J.R. Smith was a lot more ball centric when LeBron was sitting out. And I don't know if that's something that they're going to carry out into the playoffs. So they were just trying to see if that's going to work. But like, regardless of that, like, I think it was very important for them. I think them playing in the bubble before the playoffs was very important in terms of them figuring things out. But like Suku said, like, if they play a team like the Blazers, they coming in super motivated. They already have like that momentum coming in, and they've had the drive come, like, from the first game. They've had that we need to survive type of mentality, and now they're coming into the playoffs with that same mentality, and I think that's very important as well. But hey, man, Blazers are also kind of like, defensively, I'm worried about
horrible.
the Blazers. The defense. And the Lakers are really good. Like, they can really be good defensively on their good nights. Like, they can really put on defense. So if they face each other in the playoffs, I think that it's a matter of who's hungrier, who really wants it more, but also which system works best. Because with the Blazers, they figured it out. They know how they're gonna come into each game and play hard. But for the Lakers, it's like, we know they can play hard because they have the players for it. They have the experience. They have players with rings. They know how to play for a championship. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to work. But yeah.
So would you guys say that the teams who kind of have things figured out are probably the best? Well, I mean, are probably the front runners for the championship, right? Because if you think about it, the two LA teams basically are still kind of workshopping their teams, kind of like figuring things, one or two things out. Like you mentioned with the ball handling thing, I remember seeing something about how Frank Vogel was saying, you know, Cruz could bring up the ball, AD could bring up the ball, LeBron could bring up the ball, JR could bring up, Dion Waiters. I'm like, dude, there's too many options. Like, it's good to have options, but you need to have it figured out as a team. And again, same thing with the Clippers. Like, with the Clippers, they each they've played like 12 games together as a full squad. And there have been so many issues around the team with, like, you know, Lou Williams going to Magic City, getting some lap dances in the middle, like just before the restart. Montrezl Harrell not being, you know, coming back into the team now. Hasn't played a game yet. I think he may have played last night. I haven't checked. And then there's also things like the 76ers. Like, the 76ers are seeing flames. Like, Ben Simmons is injured. Joel Embiid is not 100%. The team isn't clicking the way it's supposed to be clicking. So would you guys say that there's still time to figure it out for teams like the Clippers, the Lakers, more to a lesser degree, but the 76ers as well? Or are teams like the Bucks, who have the rotations, know what each player's role is in the team? The Toronto Raptors, are those teams more the favorite teams now? Or do you guys think they can still develop momentum going into the playoffs? Tula, what do you think?
So for me, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
You guys see me?
You just gone into dark mode.
Hey. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I think for me, like for all the teams that are like have found their rhythm, they know what systems to use and everything. I think they have an advantage coming into the playoffs. But I mean, playoffs are very different from the regular season, and we've seen a lot of really good players play very well in the regular season and then come into the playoffs and pretty much tank, right?
Yeah.
Because the format of the playoffs is very different. It's like it's not a one game we're done with that team type of situation. We're going to play 7 games with these guys. So if we have a good night against them now, the following night might not be the same because now they know how we're going to play. They know how we're going to approach them. They know every single individual, how every single individual plays. Like a team can really hone in on the entire roster and try and figure out how to stop each player, how to go against each player, who to match each player with, and they can fully focus themselves on beating that team on a 7-game stretch.
Yeah.
And that being said, having a good enough system really helps. For example, the Bucks have a huge advantage coming into the playoffs because they have the depth, they have the talent, and they have a very great Giannis leading them. So they also have that advantage. But I mean, we saw last season what happened with the Bucks when they played against the Raptors, and as soon as Giannis was stopped, the team couldn't take it on. Nobody else could step up. Middleton couldn't step up. Like you have those situations where a team that's, because the Raptors were also that same kind of team who were kind of figuring things out, but still performing well enough to make the playoffs last season. And as soon as they came to the playoffs, Nick Nurse actually did really well with researching every single team they played against. They knew who to match who against, who to play who with, what type of basketball they should play against every team, and that really helped that team. And they didn't have the amount of time to figure things out, but when it came to the playoffs, they knew just the system and knew what to do. And I think that's the most important thing for every team coming into the playoffs is like if you, it doesn't matter if you guys are, like, I'd say quote unquote ill prepared for the playoffs, but it's really about who comes in there and who plays hard and who really thinks about the playoffs really well, and like the stretch of it and how each game is going to work out, so yeah.
Okay, and then Six, what's your opinion? You've also gone a bit dark mode as well.
Yeah. I would say for me, I think everything Tula said kind of makes sense. I would sort of add in there just to say, I think the Raptors and the Bucks, to his points, have probably the greatest advantage going into the playoffs, especially the Raptors, because of their depth and their experience. And there's just a level of consistency with their play that's just going to probably carry them through quite a bit, I think, for that. So I would say for them, that's definitely going to help them. And I think the other thing that's important to have is agility in your squad. Like if you guys, because it's like a 7-game series, that means that there's a chance for the opposition to kind of figure you out. And if you can't adjust to that, then you're probably going to get knocked out. So it's like, for example, I look at a team like Houston. Yeah, they can go small ball, but what happens if the other team keeps their bigs on the floor? Like, how are you going to stop that that interior scoring or that interior defense, or if they're out rebounding you, then they're getting second chance points everywhere. You know what I mean? So it's like all those little different sort of dynamics that can affect the game. So I think that's probably something that's going to be key. So like whichever team knows their system and also has ways to kind of switch it up, because like that's where the like for a team like the Lakers, that gift and curse about who's gonna carry the ball. If they haven't done it previously, then they have to figure it out during a playoff series, which is not ideal at all.
No, that's a good point, Snug. Yeah, I mean, actually we haven't even touched on the Rockets a bit, and they seem to be getting the things together at the right time. Westbrook and Harden seem to be in the element, and I think the Clint Capella trade is looking more and more genius on Mike D'Antoni's side and the Rockets side. But also, even more than that, is he's actually got them playing defense as well, which is like a major key to their championship aspirations. I mean, it makes sense, right, that we've spoken so much about the Lakers. I mean, about the Blazers and the Grizzlies, because I mean, those are the teams that are kind of like have been the center of conversation for obvious reasons. So if I'm the Lakers, right? Sorry, who do you want to play in the first round of the playoffs? You want to play the Blazers, or do you want to play the Grizzlies? Tula, you can tell me your thoughts.
Oh, okay. I think if I'm the Lakers, I'm definitely going for Portland. Simply because
you want to play Portland.
Yeah, definitely going for Portland because I mean, if you look at well, first of all, it's way more interesting to watch Portland and the Lakers in the first round of the playoffs. That let's just get that out the way. Secondly, I think if I'm the Lakers, I know that if I have LeBron and the players that are part of the supporting cast with LeBron right now, I shouldn't be afraid of playing a game in the playoffs. Doesn't matter which team I'm playing. And if I'm playing a team that is as strong as Portland, then I know that going forward, I've already, like, if the Lakers make it past Portland, they will have such a huge momentum built up to actually face other teams going forward that they might actually perform better, you know. Because I'm not saying that the Grizzlies are not a better team, because the Grizzlies are actually a really good team, and they've proven themselves against the Lakers during the regular season. So with that being said, like, I actually think that the Grizzlies might be a great contender in the first round, but like, I think the better contender is Portland, just because first of all, the way they've played in regular season games has been interesting, and I'd personally like to see that matchup happen. But also, I think that the Lakers have maybe a 2% advantage over Portland at the moment, like just a small advantage. but that's it, because I'm, like I said, I'm very much worried about Portland's defense, and I don't think they have an answer for LeBron. So that being said, and we know playoff LeBron. Like, we didn't see him last season, but we know playoff LeBron. So
we know what he
exactly. So if they figure out an answer for LeBron and how to stop him, they might actually have a good chance to contend against the Lakers. But yeah, bro, like I'm picking Portland and Lakers definitely.
Yeah. So clearly, Tula doesn't like doing things the easy way in life. Like, he likes. If you're the Lakers, if you're LeBron, you're AD, you're Frank Vogel, who would you rather play in the playoffs right now? Would you rather play the Grizzlies or the Blazers?
Memphis, easy, because Memphis is like, they haven't had a great run so far. Like the Grizzlies, they've struggled a bit in the bubble. So I think from that perspective, that's probably where you want to be, is sort of going against them. So I would say you probably are looking to go against Memphis just because Memphis has And also there's I mean, they're led by Morant, and Morant's a rookie still, so he doesn't have. So this is like all new to him. Whereas I mean, for example, last season the Blazers went to the Western Conference Finals, so you don't want them to get their tail up on you at all, because there's a level of confidence that they could have. Like if the Blazers were to steal Game 1, that really kind of puts the Cats sort of amongst the pigeons, so to speak. So I think they'd rather. So I think for them, they would rather kind of deal with that, because I mean, even though their defense isn't the greatest, that Blazers offense, if it gets going, it can be hard to stop. Like I mean, it's cool. You can, yeah, because you can try to like trap Lillard, but then he can feed it to Carmelo or to CJ, and then like kind of just get it back around. I mean, and the way they do those high picks, like no one's really been able to combat that so far. So I think there'll be more things for them to figure out. Whereas with Memphis, it's kind of, you can just kind of play almost like a more mental game with them and see how they work. Because I mean, playoff basketball is a lot more half court basketball. It's yeah, so it's like less up and down, and I think up and down suits a team like Memphis more than it does the Blazers, because I think Blazers know how to run those half court sets. So I think if I'm LA, I definitely would rather see Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, to a certain degree, I think I also get what Richard is coming from. So, for instance, if you think about it, what the reason that Memphis made it to the 8th, they've surprised a whole lot of teams this season, and who's to say they can't surprise the Lakers? Who's to say they haven't saved the best for the playoffs? And the fact that their young team, inexperience, might work against them in tight games. But what I remember from, when we were younger, and I think maybe that's why Tula is coming from that perspective, is that you're younger, you're a lot more fearless, right? So you're not afraid to try things, you're not afraid to do things. So from that perspective, it might be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. And again, Tula, like you said, with the Blazers, Blazers have been there, they've done that, so they kind of know how to win playoff games. The question for me is that, for both teams, it's going to be a struggle because the Lakers have rested, they've had a chance to kind of figure things out, or they've been trying to figure things out, so they might be closer to knowing what they want to do in the playoffs. And also, if LeBron and AD show up, like it's no competition. Like I love Dame, I think Dame has done amazingly, but firstly, the fact that CJ is also injured right now, or is playing with a bit of a fracture, doesn't help them. So that's already one problem. And then they've got Kuz, who's starting to pull up, like you said, Tula, like he was amazing in the bubble, or he's been amazing in the bubble. So I think from that perspective, it's a tight one. It's not as like, the Blazers have more experience, but I think it's a very close one in terms of like who in the playoffs that the Lakers want to face, and I think that's what makes the playoffs so amazing and so exciting. Right, it's the best teams, and it's not as always as like but the Lakers are playing. Who's a bad team? They're playing the Timberwolves, so it's a given that the Lakers are going to win. So that's going to be very, very interesting to see. We've spoken a lot about the West. In the East, right? I mean, I think we all agree that the Bucks have the things like kind of figured out. We've spoken about the Raptors. Are you guys worried about the 76ers? Like, like I'm watching the 76ers and I'm like, geez, man, Brett Brown has done amazing as a coach. Firstly, is he still the person to lead the 76ers going into the future? Because they stuck with the team that they have now, right? They can't really, Horford has a big contract. Ben Simmons has a big contract. Tobias Harris has a big contract. Joel Embiid has, so like they stuck with those 4 players, and you need like you need a coach who knows how to handle those kind of players, or who has that experience. And I'm not sure if Brett Brown is the guy. So what do you guys think about the 76ers at the moment? Sukes, you can kind of give us an answer.
All right. I think Brett Brown, he was under quite a bit of pressure, but I think he's fortunate that Ben Simmons got injured, because he has something to kind of like, that's his get out of jail card no matter what happens kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I think if he had like a fully fit squad, it was going to be like, bro, like what's going on? Plus for me, I think the way in which they built that squad, like letting go Jimmy Butler, to me was a mistake, because he kind of brought like something different. And
he helped the team.
And like, Exactly, exactly. Because I mean, I think we've seen now Ben Simmons is a great point guard, but you don't have to play him like the move to power forward was going to be quite an interesting thing to see how that played out. And obviously now, like that's not going to happen for them. So I think that would have been interesting just to see how that plays out. But I think, yeah, I mean, there were just some like questionable choices as to how they built that team to see whether it's really going to be a contender. And I think even though there's a lot of talent, I'm not sure how well they gel together. So I think that's probably been like the big issue for them. So I think they could be a dark horse, but I just worry about their depth now because there's no Ben Simmons and because Joel is not 100%. And just I think the guys don't know their roles, kind of thing. Like there's no alpha there. Like you still need to know who your alpha is, and then like that guy is the guy whom you go to when times get rough. Like for example, in LA, they're lucky because AD and LeBron have such a great chemistry. So it's like if they had that with Ben Simmons and Joel, then you kind of feel okay, cool. There's something going there, but you don't see how that dynamic fits in Philly. It just seems like quite a bit of talent, but there's no real direction. So I think Brett Brown he's been given a hard task with the pieces he was given to try to make that like a championship team.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I'm thinking, right? Is the more you're talking, the more I'm like, you know, who is a good spot up shooter in that team? Probably Tobias Harris and one or two other players. But you've got four players ideally who love playing in the paint. Like Ben likes being in the paint, Joel, Horford, even you know, Tobias likes driving into the paint. So you're four big players, all like like it's such a messy situation, you know.
And then like who do you kick it out to? Yeah.
Who do you kick it out to? Because and then Ben doesn't want to take threes, like he's afraid of. So you can't space the floor, which is a major part of the NBA today. I mean, Tula, I know we've covered a lot in terms of the 76ers. Anything you want to add on that?
Yeah. For me, I think the thing that I'm mostly worried about with the 76ers is the chemistry right now. I mean, they've had a lot of chemistry problems during the regular season, but they were able to put it on because they have such a talented roster, and some of their bench players are actually pretty good as well. So we can't take away from that. I think the chemistry issue is not just the on court. It's not just the on court thing. I think it's also like off the court. You can see like energy levels are a lot lower. I don't know what's really happening in the locker room. Maybe they're not seeing eye to eye with Brett Brown or something. I don't know. But regardless of that, the chemistry isn't there, and you have teams like, for example, while we're on the topic of the East, you have teams like the Nets, where the Nets aren't really there with all their stars, but they actually have the level of chemistry that is necessary for them to play basketball, which translates on the court, right? And we're not seeing that with the 76ers, and that's the one thing that I'm very worried about, and that's why I'm not confident with them coming out of the first round, to be honest. But yeah.
You brought up an interesting team in the Nets, though, because I mean, before after pretty much the NBA went into lockdown, we knew that Kevin Durant was potentially out for the whole season. Kyrie Irving just had like season-ending knee surgery, and then they fired their coach Kenny Atkins and replaced him with Jacques Vaughn. So now it's like, who's going? You know, so I think the whole thing was like everyone thought going into the restart that there's no one to carry this Nets team. I mean, fine, there's Caris LeVert. Also, Spencer Dinwiddie is also not there. He's not at the in the bubble. He's not in Orlando. So like, it was like, who the hell is going to help this like, are they just going to the bubble or to Orlando to just like kind of play ball and then just lay over and let teams roll over them? But they've actually been quite decent. They've actually played some good ball. They've brought in Jamal Crawford. They've brought in Tyler Johnson. Caris LeVert has stepped up as expected. Joe Harris has been on point. Jarrett Allen has been amazing. What do you guys think has been the secrets to like the Nets being as good as they are right now? And how scary are they considering they're good now and they still have KD and Kyrie to come back into the team? So what do you think?
Well, I've been actually looking at the Nets for a while now, And I think if you've watched the Nets games, they for me they remind me of like the the 2012 2013 San Antonio Spurs. Like they play like that. Like it's actually amazing. It's like the way they pass the ball around. There's no, like, Karis LeVert is not a very ball centric player, but he takes the ball across the court, and then and they pass the ball around. There's a lot of ball movement. Jared Allen is playing some really good defense. I think they really remind me of the Spurs a lot in terms of how they're playing and how the system is.
Even
But
team.
but yeah, but the one thing that's been, I think the thing that I'm very concerned about for the season coming, for the coming season, is that with the addition of Kyrie and KD, um, they have to now also figure out how to get both these guys to have the basketball and still maintain the system that they've had during these playoffs. Because I think that if they're able to do that, then this team is going to be so unstoppable next season. Because if you have a guy like Kyrie, who, I like how Kyrie played while he was in Cleveland, because while he was in Cleveland, he was the point guard, ball centric, but he was passing the ball, and he knew that he had LeBron, so he didn't constantly have to pass. He didn't constantly have to make baskets. So for that, I think with the addition of KD, that's where a player like Kyrie can kind of take a seat and say, okay, KD's got it. KD's going to take over, and I'm just going to supply KD with the ball for the next 15 minutes during a game, And if those two players sit out and they say, okay, today I'm not playing, load management, because I think for me, I think that load management is a thing that's probably going to carry a lot of stars in future. So it's very important to see a Nets team like this that doesn't really have stars to actually play the way they've been playing right now, because it speaks to how well the system is and how good they'll be going forward. So yeah, I'm excited about the Nets, man. Very excited.
You made some good points that I didn't really think about. Is that it's always easier to watch a team without without its two big stars. And because I remember even with Kyrie, Boston did well without him, and then when he came back into the team, he kind of messed up the dynamics of that Boston team. So it'll be interesting to see, first of all, if he's learned from that, and secondly, how he and KD kind of reintegrate into the team. So what are your impression of the Nets team and how they've kind of played and adapted to being without the two superstars in the bubble?
Yeah, I think you guys have both summed it up well. Like, I think what's helped them is that because there's no one that's really ball dominant, it allows the team to shine. Whereas, as you said, when Kyrie was in Boston, he kind of felt like he had to be the guy. So he was like overly ball dominant, didn't really trust his guys enough. So I'm hoping that what they do is that he learns to like see that he can trust other guys. I mean, obviously having KD makes it a lot easier for him, because KD is like bona fide, like he's a superstar. So we all know what KD can do. So if they can get that dynamic going, then great. But I think now it's just them. Like, I hope they're using this to see that they can trust those other guys and that they've got some solid role players. Because if they do that, then they could almost become what Toronto was last year. How they've just got depth and how they can just keep on throwing bodies your way. Because if you think about it, like when everyone's fit, that's a scary squad, man. Like the Boston, like the Brooklyn squad looks super scary. So I think going forward for the next season, there's a lot of things for them to be excited about, and I think it could make the Eastern Conference a bit more interesting again.